Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, a poet and musician draws inspiration from a distant family connection to the Grand Ole Opry's Little Jimmy Dickens.
He talked a lot about how he loved to sing ballads and that he felt kind of pigeonholed into singing funny songs because he was a little guy.
For 15 years, a Virginia library has been hosting a weekly Dungeons & Dragons game for teens. It can get wacky.
That's a 13.
As you go to pat his head seems comically large.
What? Comically large.
Like large
Big head.
Head should be.
And a taxidermist in Yadkin County, North Carolina, found her calling before she could drive a car.
When I was 13, I found a roadkill snake on the road and wanted to turn it into a belt.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by the COPD Foundation, offering educational materials and information on COPD symptoms, treatments, and diagnoses. Learn more at copdfoundation.org. Support for this program is brought to you by Solar Holler, helping West Virginia homeowners manage their energy costs through solar power. Details at solarholler.com. Support for this program is provided by the Thrasher Group, an architecture, engineering, and field services firm serving West Virginia clients and communities since 1983. More information at thethrashergroup.com.
Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. A lot of people who came of age listening to the Grand Ole Opry know Little Jimmy Dickens. The West Virginia-born country music singer started at the Opry in 1948. He was its oldest living member before his death in 2015. With his clever songs and his rhinestone-studded outfits, Dickens influenced a generation of performers. Now he's remembered in a new book of poetry by Nashville musician Lou Turner. Turner shared the stage with acts like M.J. Linderman and Bonnie Prince Billy. Her music veers from indie rock to Americana, and her poetry draws inspiration from country stars like Dickens. Turner's first book of poetry, Twin Lead Lines, was released in September. Producer Bill Lynch recently spoke with her about her poetry and connection to Dickens.
Let me ask about your connection to Little Jimmy Dickens and how that influenced the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. He is someone that I never got to meet, but he was the longest running member of the Grand Ole Opry here in Nashville, where I live. And he grew up in West Virginia with my grandfather. They were cousins and lived in the holler together in Bolt, West Virginia. I heard about him when I told my grandpa I was moving to Nashville to make music. And he was kind of like, someone else in our family did that, and it's this guy. And I had not heard of him before that. And so the book is inspired in part by him, and it's largely just about kind of what makes us decide to become artists and chosen family versus heritage and how those things can intertwine.
You mentioned West Virginia, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Texas, in Austin.
So you have family in West Virginia, but it seems like there were some deliberate attempts to visit the state.
Yeah, so I had never been, and I was in a poetry program in Randolph College in Lynchburg, Virginia, and kind of driving toward Virginia to study poetry and thinking, what if I went over a little bit and visited this place that my family's from that I've never seen? And so I took the time to do that on my way back once and got to visit West Virginia, went to Bolt where my grandfather and Jimmy both grew up, went to Charleston, went to that Music Hall of Fame, which is beautiful. And it was part research and part just getting to know a place and that I was writing about, and to be able to connect with it on a more sensory, visceral level, which was really cool.
Well, with connecting to Little Jimmy Dickens, did you find things that you felt were similar, that you guys had more connections to, or things that you may have looked at differently because of him?
Yeah. With Jimmy, something I discovered about him that I thought was really poignant. He talked a lot about how he loved to sing ballads and that he felt kind of pigeonholed into singing funny songs because he was a little guy, 4'11", and people wanted him to do the funny stuff and kind of be a little bit of a clown. And he enjoyed doing that, and he was so good at it. But he really loved singing ballads, and he put a B side every A side. Every time there was a funny song on a single, the backside would be a ballad. And so there's a poem about that in the book, and that's something that I didn't necessarily relate to directly, but I think any artist can relate to that pressure that you feel maybe to make something that is for public consumption, or the label might prefer something a different way, or just any kind of outside pressure to not be yourself or to do the thing that you're interested in doing that you think you're good at. And so I think I could relate to that. I guess it's more in a DIY underground musician way that I can relate to it. But I can, and I think anyone who makes things can relate to that.
You're a musician and a poet, so those two things often go together, but they're not always. So the question becomes, what was first for you? Was it poetry or was it music?
I remember making up songs as a kid in the bathtub and kind of always singing. So I think music was the first love, but I was also really interested in what I was singing. And I think church was a big part of that, growing up in the church, reading and singing songs. All those things felt really connected for me, the singing and also what we were singing about. And so there's a connection between them that runs deep, but they're definitely separate practices now. And I kind of think of those hats as two different hats.
The poet hat. What is your poetry practice like?
I'd say it is a daily one, even if it's just observing things around you. That can be wearing your poet hat. I keep a running list of notes of observations or lines that come to me. So while I'm not always focused on writing a poem every day, I think there can be an active practice where you're listening and sort of on the back burner thinking through your perspective and what you might want to spend time with on the page later. I'd love to spend more time actively writing poems. My music hat maybe gets in the way of that a little bit, but I think it is kind of good to take a break and spend time observing and gathering material.
Compare that to your music hat, the time you spend doing music. How is it different?
Music is so much more social. Writing is often really solitary. Often there's, a lot of community around it, which is great too. But I find that music is so much more social. I'm with people, we're making something together on stage. You have an audience actively giving you feedback. And that is really energizing, but also can be tiring for an introvert like me. And so poetry is kind of this other way of finding energy. And so they're kind of nice companions if you can find the balance, which is challenging.
You talk about performance and music and being out in the public eye. So poetry, have you taken your poems out? Have you done poetry readings?
Yeah, I have. I've been fortunate to do that. A little bit of a book tour this year, which has been really lovely. It's so much more quiet, even though it's social, than a rock show. And that part of it makes me a little nervous. Like I feel more exposed. I'm at the mic just with my words and I don't have sound around me or friends. But it's important and it feels really rewarding, like much more rewarding even to do it and to connect with people on that vulnerable level and to spend that kind of quiet, attentive time with other poets too and hear their work. So it's been wonderful and a gift. I'm grateful I've gotten to do it.
Would you like to read something?
Sure, I'd love to. I've got a poem called Still on the Line here. What is it about Glenn Campbell's Wichita lineman, queued up every day for months on end? I can't imagine a day without longing for its soft, mellow whine, in its essence, a whistle while you work song, wishing for vacation, wishing for your work to align you with another. And the song actually did that. Penned by Jimmy Webb and covered by everyone from the Meters to REM to Z and J at our wedding, each of them still on the line. I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. Yesterday, another storm. A transformer blew on the line. The whole street sparked blue. The lineman came to fix it around 9 and was up working into the morning. We peered out the window, dared one another to go outside and serenade him, He's still on the line. We wondered if climate change has him busier than ever. Wondered if he also wonders how to pay his electric bill each month. Despite so much work, so much love. Wondered if he also loves the rhinestone cowboy the way that we do, without irony, with a high tolerance for schmaltz. Wondered if he has someone he wants for all time. And if I listen close enough, I begin to think of strangers like him as people I know. I begin to think of people I know as if they were strangers, but not in a sad way. It's a respectful distance, full of love and mystery, the way I hope I know anything, tethered to uncertainty, wanting for all time. A great wedding song when I come to think of it, but I don't even remember hearing it at our wedding. We were sparking blue every which way, but our friends were still on the line, stoking the fire. And when I think of it, I can hear them now, still on the line. A whiff of jasmine, riding a September evening's breeze, right around the time the temperature drops and the asphalt is relieved of the sun, sends its warmth right back. The way the guitar line blossoms out of the vocal, still on the line. The way your love relieves me of my expectations on love. The way a love song is also a work song. This labor of love, the only way.
The way a love song is also a work song. I like that. So
Thank you.
tell me about that poem. Why that one in particular? And Glenn Campbell. There's so many things in there. Wichita Lineman, and also the Rhinestone Cowboy. Why that?
That one just feels fun to read. The rhythm of it is really fun to follow. It's kind of one long sentence. It's got commas and there's not a lot of periods, and so it's kind of fun how that measures out the units of attention in the poem. And the song Wichita Lineman has a couple of different references in the book, and it feels kind of like a little microcosm of what the book is doing, which is communicating with like someone that's not there. In my case, little Jimmy Dickens, who inspired a lot of the book. So I kind of like thinking of Wichita Lineman in a lot of different ways. It's this love song that's important to my relationship that was played at my wedding, but also kind of this metaphor for connecting with people on many different levels.
What's coming next for you?
Coming next, I am playing bass in my friend Ryan's band. It's called Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band. We're touring the East Coast this winter. We have a lot of fun. And then I'm finishing up my next solo record at the moment, kind of finishing recording it. And then I'd love to keep writing poems. I'm working on a collection of sonnets that I hope to finish in the next little bit. So that's on the horizon. Oh, and another band I'm a part of, Styrofoam Winos. We have a new record coming out next summer.
Lou, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was musician and poet Lou Turner speaking with Bill Lynch. Turner's debut poetry collection, Twin Lead Lines, is available from Third Band Books. Her most recent album is Microcosmos. One of Appalachia's deadliest predators is also one of its snuggliest. That's right, we're talking about the domestic house cat. Stray cats bear litters of kittens year-round, and they can take a major toll on songbirds and other wildlife. Through spay and neuter programs, fostering, and adoption, shelters and volunteers are trying to stem the feline tide. WMRA's Randy B. Hagee reports. Listeners should be advised this story mentions some graphic veterinary problems.
The Kaiser's historic family farm sits along a busy country road outside of Mount Jackson. A friendly gray tabby cat named Junebug greets me at the door.
Good job. So that's June.
Annalise Kaiser lives here with her mom, Cindy, a herd of rare breed horses, a flock of chickens, 1 dog, and 13 cats. Some of those showed up here, others at their old home near Verona. Annalise found Junebug when she was working for the Census Bureau in 2019.
And so I drove into a pretty isolated barn that I presume was abandoned, and a cat started chasing my car. And when I stopped the car, she jumped up in front of it and started screaming on the hood. They got out and I picked her up and she started purring.
We sit down to talk near the wood stove, surrounded by curled up cats. Rosebud, Wobble, Jane, Prim, Sanderson. Over the years, they've taken in even more that they were able to rehome.
So you said these 13 were the ones that you couldn't get rid of.
We've been trying.
I have not been trying.
I've been trying.
One of their neighbors has a colony of outdoor cats on their property. They've all been fixed now, but the Kaisers said kittens still appear occasionally.
It used to be, instead of dumping cats, they would drown kittens.
That's what my grandmother would do. And that's awful too.
That's awful, but it is also now we can spay and neuter.
Yes.
When the alternative is these colonies, you kind of I see why they didn't want this to be their farm.
Cats freely breeding and roaming also has an impact on our local wildlife.
We see wild animals that have been caught by cats almost every single day coming into our hospital.
Dr. Cara Pierce is the director of veterinary services at the Wildlife Center of Virginia in Waynesboro.
Their survival chances are pretty low generally due to the injuries that these cats can cause to them. It's especially prevalent in, the spring and summer when the wild animals are having their babies. So there are young squirrels, young opossums, young mice, lots of young songbirds. We also see reptiles as well.
In Melissa Miller's house outside Morrietown, foster cats watch the wildlife through the windows of a large sunroom.
And the long-term residents obviously usually have health issues or they're older. So this one here is Gracie. There
Miller is the president of the Humane Society of Shenandoah County, a volunteer network of foster homes. Many of their adoptable cats find homes through the Aristocat Cafe in downtown Harrisonburg. They also have programs to help people spay and neuter their pets and spay and neuter feral and community cats that live outdoors. That's often referred to as Trap Neuter Return, or TNR. In one room, kittens hop in my lap and up on my shoulder.
We received a call from a lady who had a lot of cats and a lot of kittens, and she needed help. So when we got out there, initially we took in 13 older kittens and 2 very small kittens that were sick. They had a total of 5 adults there. There was only 1 male and 4 females. Mm-hmm. And then when I took some back after they had been spayed or neutered, these kittens were actually falling out of the carport rafters.
The teen room is full of cats trapped from outdoor colonies. Some are friendly, and some Miller hopes can still be socialized. Their health problems are a prime example of how the welfare of colony cats can suffer.
He had such a high infestation of worms. His rectum was literally sticking out. So he had to get surgery. She has some scarring on her eyes from her upper respiratory. We had to have one of his eyes removed. And they came from a colony in Fort Valley. He had probably well over 50 cats.
They fix an average of 1,000 cats a year, but they keep coming in. Miller, who also co-leads the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies, said it's like this all over the state.
They breed so fast, and I don't think people realize they can get pregnant so early. They can get pregnant when they're nursing.
The Rockingham-Harrisonburg SPCA also has a community cat program, which provides vouchers to county residents so they can get their outdoor cats fixed, vaccinated, and microchipped at Anacera Veterinary Center.
Historically, we had such a large amount of cats and kittens coming into our care here as a municipal shelter that we wanted to address the upstream causes.
Executive Director Huck Nawaz said when they launched the program, the shelter was taking in more than 2,000 cats every year. Since then, they've spayed and neutered an average of 1,500 cats a year through this program, and it is making a difference.
It's been impactful. We've taken almost 500 less felines than we used to in 2022. But if they're going to be out there, I think it's an obligation for all of us to make an effort to reduce the suffering for the animals, but also by reducing the number of animals, cats, that are running loose.
And remember, animal shelters and humane societies are always in need of donations, fosters, and volunteers. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
Coming up, Dungeons & Dragons games can go on for a long time. One game at a library in Roanoke, Virginia has lasted for 15 years so far. You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by the Charleston, West Virginia Convention and Visitors Bureau, featuring family-friendly activities such as Holly Jolly Brawley and Light the Night at Go-Mart Ballpark this holiday season. Details at charlestonwv.com.
Every week for the last 15 years, kids have gotten together at the Roanoke Public Library to play Dungeons and Dragons.
You hear something approaching you in the distance. It sounds like this. And it's getting louder.
Is it speaking a language?
Can I move? Okay, and it's kind of a crowd of people. It's kind of like a busy, like, sort of marketplace in the middle of the village. There's like kind of like stalls and different people selling cabbages and selling watermelons and selling produce and peddling wares, and there's pickpockets probably around. But you can hear this sort of like frantic screaming, and as you do, you can see sort of the crowd parting as this whatever it is approaching you. There's just this bleeding sound.
Okay.
Ah!
I roll perception to see what it
Yes.
is.
Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D for short, is a role-playing game that allows players to inhabit characters in a fantasy setting. They work together to battle monsters and find treasure, and to tell a shared story in which they're all the main characters.
That's a 13.
Okay, as you go to pat his head seems comically large.
What? Comically? How comically large?
Like larger
Big
than
head.
a head should be for
Wait, hold on. I was just like,
a man that size.
I'm not sure if I should.
Can I go try to pat his head, but as I do, can I just pull off his hood?
Yeah.
We're just trying to. We don't care about presents.
As you pull off his hood, you reveal the head of a like a grizzly bear.
Bugbear.
And he turns to you and says, "Row, row, row, row." And he pulls his hood back on.
Jeffrey Wood is a youth services librarian, and he's game master for the library's D&D program. That means he's the person who prepares each game and acts as referee as kids work their way through it. I made a couple of visits to the Roanoke Public Library and caught up with Wood one evening as he prepared the next gaming session. So, what is Dungeons and Dragons? For listeners who don't know, and what does it look like in a library setting?
So, Dungeons and Dragons is a game where players take on the role of a fantasy character in a fantasy world and sort of explore that world. It's dangerous. They have to work together. There's treasure. There's monsters. There's challenges and traps. So it's very much a fantasy-based game, but it's also a device for sort of a group to tell an interesting story together. My basic goal is to help kids learn literacy skills. That was essentially the original goal. It was a literacy promoting program. And so Dungeons and Dragons is famous for it being a pencil, paper, books game. So it's not on a computer. It's not on a phone or a console. It is a game you play with books and paper and pencils. My goal is to make sure that not only the kids are playing games, but they're also trying to learn something from it in terms of developing their literacy skills and their group work skills.
How did you first get into D&D?
So I didn't actually play it as a kid at all. I didn't discover Dungeons and Dragons until I was about 22 years old when I first started here. I had heard of it. I had friends of friends that played it, but it always seemed like, the nerdiest kids. And I wasn't super into the role playing. I didn't understand the pencil, paper, the books. Actually, the way I got into it is the former children's librarian here in the city asked me, I had just started, would I like to come up and play a game with the kids, because it was just a couple off hours, I think, after my shift ended. So I came up and he actually showed me the game, and I was like, this is it. This is the coolest thing that I've ever seen, because the characters can do whatever they want. There's no limits like there are in a computer game or a console game. It's a group activity. It's very social. It's very fun. It's very funny for the people involved in it. And I just had a blast. And we started very humble. It was just basically whenever We had teens that would wander in the library, as teens do. We'd, go up and do the pitch and see if they would tell their friends to come. It's been a very much word of mouth program.
So what kinds of kids are attracted to come play this game, and what's in it for them?
Dungeons & Dragons is unique because it attracts an extremely diverse group of kids. And actually, if you look at some of the materials that the game master uses, the person who's running the game uses to try and get the kids to participate, they're very aware of that it attracts a diverse audience. And so in the source materials, if you're trying to learn how to facilitate these games, it'll say, you've got the kiddo that's interested in beating all the monsters. You've got the kiddo that's interested in making friends. You've got the kiddo that just sort of wants to tell an interesting story or be the one that makes the jokes. So it's very much kind of like a motley group. They're all very diverse in sort of what they want to get out of the game, which makes it very challenging for the person who's running it. So something that's very dear to me is sort of this concept of found family. So if a found family is essentially different characters or different people that by happenstance or accident find each other and go on an adventure together. But there are lots of found families that you'll know. So one of my favorites is the claymation Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Got the misfit elf and the misfit reindeer, Rudolph, and they both have their talents that do not fit with where they're supposed to be. Santa's a real jerk about it. So they just decide to take off, and they find other people who are kind of misfits on their way.
How have the kids playing this changed since y'all launched this in 2010? I know when I came the other night, you had an earlier generation was playing, and they are now older.
I've seen them go in every direction. I've seen kids that actually met here when they were young teenagers, and they later off went to get married in their 20s and have had children and bought a house together. I've seen kids go off to college. I know at least a couple have gotten very advanced degrees. Some went straight to work. Some went to care for family members. The kids who have come through here and sort of made friends, I've seen go in every direction in life, which has been interesting. It also makes me feel very ancient. One of the things that I think is valuable is this is a weekly recurring program. And so when you're around the same people every week and going through these tumultuous adventures that I put them through, they tend to make friends with one another and try and get along with one another. Some of them have stuck with this into their adulthood, and they still hang out even outside of the library, and so they've made some lifelong friends, hopefully.
Why is this D&D game, this running D&D game that's been going for 15 years now almost, why is it important for the library and its offerings?
Well, one of the things that's challenging for libraries is to get especially teenagers actively involved with the community and to read books. More specifically than that, it's a challenge to get teenagers to read dense books and practice skills like critical thinking and socialization and getting along. Sports kind of plays that role in schools where you're on a team and you've got a goal. For kids that aren't especially into sports, this can play a similar role because it is a challenge essentially, and all the teens come together to work together to deal with that challenge. And they've got to get along. And if they don't get along, then the dragon gets to win. I see the kids go home with a handful of books, and they'll come back the next week and they'll be like, no, I've studied this. I know how this works now. I know exactly what this spell does and how to use it. And I've done this for so long, I've seen their literacy skills improve with it because they have a motivator. And so the motivator is to not get ate by the dragon, or to, make that friend, or to get to the end of the adventure, to have the most powerful fighter in the world. And in order to do that, they've actually got to learn to read the books and learn, when to negotiate, or when to hold them, when to fold them. I've had a lot of fun sort of using it as a secret tool to educate. And so I'll actually stop the kids at times when something comes up that's like a history lesson, because Dungeons and Dragons is loosely based on Lord of the Rings and fantasy, but also other kinds of mythology. It's sort of a mishmash of European folklore, Greek mythology, even Eastern mythology is in it a bunch. So there's a huge mishmash of history and cultural material that goes into this game. And so I get to actually stop the kids at times and say, no, there's a lesson. This is actually based on this sort of thing that happened, this real historical event. And so it's sort of a secret tool for me to sneak in, my teacher stuff.
What's some wisdom you've taken away from this?
The most important thing that I've learned is not to make assumptions about what's going to happen next. Because I've seen these stories, not only the stories of the kids and their personal lives, but also I've seen the stories in the game and the game world go in fantastic directions that I did not expect to happen. They'll make connection with characters that I've come up with, and they'll mention that 8 months later. I don't even remember, so I'm going through my notes trying to remember, what is this character who they made a friend with? And so I guess, so the most important thing I've learned wisdom-wise is just to not make assumptions about where things are headed or where things are going to go, but hope for the best. During the COVID lockdowns, I actually said, the show does not end. The show must go on. The story must continue one way or another. We put the Zoom link up and had everybody log in, and I laid out the ground rules, and I said, so help me if you break these ground rules. And we got on there and we told stories for the entirety that the library was closed to the public. And we went through a module called Curse of Strahd, which is about a vampire in a very depressing place. And so one of my favorite characters, I just wanted to give a shout out to him. The kiddo is now in film school just doing a fantastic job making these things that look like they're produced by Hollywood. But he came up with the character named Sir Ribbit. So his whole trope was that he is a displaced knight wandering, doesn't know sort of who he is anymore based on a traumatic backstory that nobody knew. He also had a sort of floating mandolin that followed him around. Now, that made sort of these Texas American sounds. So he had a sort of a soundboard. So the thing that's so funny is that whenever a abstract concept came up, if somebody mentioned the word peace or love or honor or kindness or goodness, this player would hit his soundboard and that mandolin would start playing, and he would launch into a monologue. And he'd be like, honor? What is honor? Is it good enough to stand and fight a man twice your size that you know to be a scoundrel? Or sneak him with the crossbow bolt and live to fight another day? What is honor even? And he would do that, not just with honor, but with just every abstract concept that we all argue about. Just charity? What is charity? Is it good to feed a hungry child, or let the hunger teach him to feed himself? And so he would just pull these out, just out of the blue. And, because the funny thing was, we never expected it. It would just come up in the story. Some concept would come up of, we need to do the right thing, right? And then the mandolin would start playing. It was just so good. Such a good character.
That was Jeffrey Wood, Youth Services Librarian at Roanoke Public Libraries, along with some of the teenagers who played Dungeons & Dragons there each week. Eastern Kentucky is full of isolated rural towns that have declined alongside the coal industry. But some folks who want to stick around are trying to revitalize the region's downtowns. For the Appalachia Mid-South Newsroom, Shepard Snyder reports.
Nestled in the southeastern Kentucky town of Harlan is Moonbow Tipple. It's a quaint, cozy coffee shop with space for chairs and sofas, rows of bookshelves, and a small fireplace. Store manager and baker Hannah Clem is working behind the counter.
It's been going on 6 years, I guess, since we've been open here, but that was a big one, just to have the coffee shop, like a good coffee shop.
Harlan isn't dissimilar to other towns in the region. Famous for its significant coal production and labor conflicts in the 20th century, it has since experienced a loss of industry and population and an increase in vacant buildings. But these storefronts are also necessary gathering places for locals.
We have a big rush for teenagers, and they'll just hang out here waiting for their rides, for hours, and it's more, I guess, having a place you can like sit and just socialize, and it's kind of a nice atmosphere.
Jeff Marietta owns Moonbow Tipple along with a handful of other Harlan businesses. He's also running for mayor and serves as the interim executive director of One Harlan County, a local economic development nonprofit. Much of his time has involved finding ways to reshape Harlan's economy after decades of decline.
You had the opioid epidemic just ravaging communities in eastern Kentucky, combined with the rapid decline of coal. And those two things came together, and then, of course, you layer in the housing bubble.
That includes opening third spaces where locals can gather or for curious tourists to come visit.
We still have very loving community. We still have beautiful mountains. We still have these things. And now we have a good restaurant. Now we have a good coffee shop.
Other towns in eastern Kentucky have hired Main Street or downtown coordinators focusing on revitalizing their downtowns with events, community spaces, and local fixtures. Teresa Mays is the Main Street coordinator for Beattyville in Lee County. She says much of our work involves small businesses who have been there for decades.
We don't have, a Walmart here. We have local small businesses. And so locals, I think, because we're a small community, locals know the business owners. So if there's a specific need they feel comfortable reaching out to the business owners.
Others say investing in revitalization makes towns more attractive for bringing in industry. Bailey Richards is the former downtown coordinator for Hazard. She now works with the Mountain Association, a nonprofit that invests in eastern Kentucky businesses.
If you have a place that people want to live, then they will more than likely move their business there. But if it's a place that people don't necessarily want to live, they might come for a small period of time because of a tax incentive or because of different things, but they may not stay forever.
Living in eastern Kentucky can come with challenges. Hazard was hit by floods both earlier this year and in 2022.
Choosing to be in the place that you love and the place that you want to be with the community that you want to be, that makes it easier to want to rebuild. And then also there is that we know that these things are coming. They're coming more often. So now we just have to plan for them.
In Harlan, Marietta says a challenge with redevelopment is not sacrificing the character of the town or alienating locals. He says he's up to the task.
I think Harlan County is very far from, becoming a Pigeon Forge or a Gatlinburg, but it's also, you need to be intentional in your economic development efforts if you do not want to move in that direction.
I'm Shepard Snyder.
The holiday season brings a lot of joy and light, but it also brings a lot of stuff. After Christmas, what are you supposed to do with the wrapping paper and the gift boxes? Not to mention the tree. Last year, WVPB's Chris Schultz spoke with Amy White, the Director of Sustainability at Marshall University, about some ideas for cleaning up after the holidays.
Let's establish a baseline. What is sustainability?
So sustainability actually has three pillars. I think everyone thinks of the environmental pillar, and that is true. We need to protect our resources, but also there is a fiscal responsibility pillar. So we have to have a strong, healthy economy. And then the people pillar. So we need to think about the people around us and do what's good for everyone involved.
What are some sustainability concerns that you see around the holiday?
There is a lot of concern now that online shopping has increased so much. You have increased packaging, you have shipping it, across the country, sometimes across the world. And so that's something that we do need to think about as far as carbon footprint and the added packaging and resources that it takes to get the gift to you. But another important thing to think about is, shopping locally. Anytime you buy something online that you could have purchased locally, you're actually putting a dent in your local economy. And we can't truly be sustainable unless we have a strong local economy. Also, if you shop locally, if you go to your locally owned stores, mom and pop shops, that kind of thing, you're reducing that carbon footprint. Yeah, one thing definitely of concern is, think when you're shopping for Christmas presents about how this gift is going to impact your local economy and the environment as well.
When we're talking about sustainability as it relates to maybe returns or the disposal of old items around the holidays, what are some things that people need to keep in mind?
So if you're going to return an item and you have to, send it back through the mail, you can take it to certain drop-off locations like the UPS store, and they will actually wait until they have a large box all going back to the same place before they ship. If you just send it back yourself, that is just more travel time, more carbon footprint, more packaging that doesn't need to happen. As far as getting rid of an item that maybe a gift is replacing, look to see if it's a recyclable product and take it to an appropriate recycling center. And a lot of places like Goodwill, where you can take your appliances or your electronics for electronics recycling. You may also want to reach out to your local solid waste authority. Every county has one. And see, a lot of times right after Christmas, they will do electronics recycling drives.
And what about local resale pages on Facebook, for example, come to mind, or buy nothing groups?
That's another great way to get rid of things just in general around your house instead of throwing them away. And also, selling them online at a discounted price. eBay is certainly an option, then again, you're shipping. There's really, it's difficult to get away from a lot of the carbon impact from shipping. But if you're doing something locally, like donating to a local shelter, or you're using the Facebook donation sites, then that is the perfect way to do it. I think the best thing to think about all year round is just stick local. If you can shop local, do returns local, donate local, you're going to have a huge impact on the economy and the environment. And people, if you're donating items to someplace that are actually going to give them to people in need.
Where does your office stand on the issue of Christmas trees, both live and artificial?
I think that either can be an option depending on how you go about it. So as far as real Christmas trees go, there are several ways to purchase those. You can buy live Christmas trees with the roots still attached and plant them after Christmas. If you buy a pre-cut live Christmas tree, you can always send it to a composting center. You can have it ground up for mulch, or you can take it to the DEP and they will actually use those trees in lakes as fish environment, which is a great way to get rid of them. So as long as they're disposed of properly, I don't think that real trees are an issue at all. I tend to try to stay away from plastic. However, if you do keep the tree over 10 years, there's research that shows that you've offset your carbon. I just don't know how many people would keep the artificial tree for more than 10 years. Also, again, I know this loops back and I sound like a broken record, but think about where that plastic tree was made and what kind of conditions it was made under. There's so much that goes into every decision to be made.
Is there anything that I haven't given you a chance to discuss with me?
Christmas lights. Switching your current Christmas lights to LED lights. LED lights use 80% less energy. Also, on your outside lights, you can buy outdoor lights that come with small solar panels so that you're not using any energy from an outlet. Those are both great alternatives to traditional Christmas lights that can be pretty hard hitting when it comes to energy consumption.
A lot of people are fascinated by the results of taxidermy, whether it's a display at a park's visitor center or a big buck on a friend's wall. But we tend to be a little more uncomfortable with the process that goes into making these animal mounts. The preservation and mounting of dead animals has been around since at least the Middle Ages. But it didn't really become popular until the 1800s, when hunters began bringing trophies to upholstery shops. In 2023, Margaret McLeod Leaf brought us this story of one expert practitioner in Yadkin County, North Carolina.
I feel a little apprehensive as I walk up to Amy Ritchie's workshop in Hamptonville, North Carolina, especially after hearing the message on her voicemail.
Hi, you've reached Amy's Animal Art. I'm sorry you've missed me. I'm probably skinning a bobcat or sewing up the neck of a giraffe. Please leave me a message. I'll call you back as soon as I can stop and pull off the rubber gloves.
Amy is an award-winning taxidermist. Her studio is located in her 4-bay garage. It's large, bright, and airy, with about 150 deer antlers hanging from the high ceilings. Everything is neatly organized. On one side, power tools hang on a wall next to shelves filled with paints and adhesives.
Over here is the giraffe corner.
The other side of the studio is a veritable zoo. A few giraffes, lions, armadillos, bears, coyotes, suspended in motion. They seem so vital. I can't help but reach out and touch them. They feel soft and real.
I'm really passionate about taxidermy. I think at my core, I just love it. It's what I was meant to do.
Amy grew up in rural North Carolina, homeschooled by her mom. She says that gave her plenty of time to follow her interests. That included animals, particularly dead ones.
I started when I was 13. I found a roadkill snake on the road and wanted to turn it into a belt.
It was a king snake with a white chain pattern.
I asked Mom if I could have a knife from the kitchen to skin the snake, and she said, just please wear gloves so you don't get a disease.
Amy taught herself how to skin and tan it.
I was able to find the information online, how to use glycerin and some different products from just the pharmacy to be able to tan that. And there I was, snakeskin belt.
Amy admits she was an unusual child with unusual interests.
I like being unique. I mean, why be like everyone else? And I never have been.
She says her dad also supported her interest in taxidermy. He had a second job delivering newspapers early in the morning.
And he would find all the fresh roadkills. So that's how he would bring home raccoons and possums and things for me to practice skinning.
When she was 16, Amy says her dad encouraged her to enter a national taxidermy competition. Her entry was a red squirrel mounted on a bed of leaves as if it was sleeping. Amy competed in the open division, and even though she was a novice, she walked away with third place. She's gone on to win many awards over the years. Now at 36, she's a highly skilled taxidermist in demand. She makes her living mounting animals for hunters and collectors.
We got the actual messy stuff going on. This is a wild boar. Someone brought in.
The bones and bulk of the meat have already been removed. Amy starts by preparing and tanning the hide. She grabs a knife.
We have to take this meat off, and so I'll hold the knife and work it down like this. It's fascinating and kind of satisfying to slowly shave this off.
Amy is small, just over 5 feet tall. She wraps the exposed hide tightly on the edge of her workbench and scrapes the knife along the boar's hide in rhythmic motion. At this stage, the hide is stiff and unwieldy.
It's hard. I can't even fold the hide. By the time I'm done, it'll be soft, and it will not take up as much space in my freezer.
The freezer, a part of this tour that I've been most curious about. Amy has 7 chest freezers. She opens a freezer lid, and I pull out one of about 50 gallon-sized Ziploc bags. Inside is something called a deer cape.
Yeah.
These are so compact, it's like a roast.
Yeah, it's just the skin, and it's the head and shoulders of the deer, and wrapped up really tight.
After Amy treats the hide, she crafts the animal's shape. She carves muscles, veins, and bone mass out of a foam mold, like a sculptor. She sands the mold, applies adhesives, and wraps the skin around it. Then she smooths out irregularities before sewing it up with artfully hidden stitches. She uses glass eyes.
You gotta detail the eyes so that they look realistic, so they have expression. And those are those things that separate, just a hide assembler from an artistic taxidermist.
Amy says when she was starting out, she didn't know many other women in the field. But she says that's changed in the past few years. And she's helping train a new generation through her Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Hey folks, today we're going to do a repair video. And this is going to be involving a very common problem that I see with more deer capes.
And now, through an apprenticeship.
In conjunction with this wire brush helps.
Amy is helping her first apprentice, Mariah Petrie, carve a foam mold. They'll sand and apply adhesives before pulling a deer cape onto the form. Mariah started out as a customer. She came into Amy's workshop a few years ago to drop off a deer to be mounted, and the two hit it off. Mariah says she was a little uneasy with the work at first.
Being an animal person myself, I was like, oh, my heart's going to get in the way. Will I be able to clean this cat? Because it looks like my pet cat in a way, just a little bit bigger. And you get to come to terms with things. After you do it once, it's just a motion you go through.
Now she works part-time with Amy and hopes to start her own taxidermy business. She says her favorite part is breathing life into her subjects.
I think it has been amazing how you can make a piece of foam with some clay look realistic. That is the start of everything, just taking something that looks lifeless and making it look realistic when you saw it out in the woods or a picture.
Like Mariah, most of Amy's clients are hunters who bring in deer trophies or bobcats. Amy says she rarely hunts, though she doesn't have a problem with it as long as the animals are legally obtained.
I'm here in the South where really if you haven't seen a deer head or know what taxidermy is, how are you even a Southerner?
But Amy's most prized mounts are from a trip she made to Africa. They include the head and neck of an adult giraffe looming over 10 feet tall in her studio. Hunting giraffes is controversial. Amy says this animal was an older male that was beyond breeding age and had been attacking younger giraffes. She also has a mother and baby giraffe that were donated by a zoo after they died of natural causes. Amy enjoys sharing her collection, especially with kids.
They just come in here and they're like, wow, Mom and Dad, what's that? What's that? And it really gets you more up close than you would even in most zoos. And, how many kids get to pet a baby giraffe?
Amy says she's constantly looking for new ways to expand her craft. More active poses, more detailed scenery. She says part of the pleasure for her is the transformation. Like when she turned that snakeskin she found on the side of the road into an eye-catching belt.
I think the fascination with just thinking, wow, that would have just been thrown away and I have done something with something that would have rotted. And maybe that's why I like taxidermy so much, the idea that you can make something from nothing.
For Amy, it's more than just preserving animals. She enjoys sharing this art form, whether it's with her clients or with people who just stop by to marvel at her studio. For Inside Appalachia, this is Margaret McLeod Leaf in Yadkin County, North Carolina.
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in the region. You can find more Folkways stories at our website, wvpublic.org. Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Little Jimmy Dickens, Fred Hutchinson, Lou Turner, Mary Hott, Blue Dot Sessions, and Hello June. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Jennifer Gorin. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe to our newsletter and stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.